Okay. Welcome to today's class. Thank you for being flexible, guys. I was so not ready at 6 p.m. I was still on the road back to the Airbnb. So really, really appreciate your flexibility and thank you for showing up. It's part 6 of the 7-part series. Yay. I'm going to share my screen. As usual, please let me know if you see it. And then I'm just going to do that. I'm going to admit people. Are you guys able to see the screen that I'm now sharing before I jump in? Just type yes in the chat box and then I'll start the presentation. Yes, thank you, Ritabilem. Okay, as usual, feel free to jump in at any time, guys. I am going to start the presentation. Oh my gosh, I've done so much speaking and presenting and everything this week. I have to tell y'all. Whew, I think I spoke for about 3 hours solid today to media, on stage. I'm just like, and tomorrow I'm speaking even more. But talking about different things. People are like, you trigger us. I'm like, I haven't started triggering y'all. Like, I'm not even talking about archetypes or family dynamics. I'm just explaining basic trauma work. Thanks, Nantavega. Thank you, Katleho. Okay, so today we're doing an archetype that I think is very, very important. Definitely not an archetype that I am, right? It's called the Fixer archetype, right? So again, everything is from the book. What's your money personality? Of course, in these presentations, I'm taking it a step further than the book. I'm going deeper. So the title for today is Stepping into Sovereignty, Evolving from the Fixer Money Archetype to the Sovereign one, right? And let's start. So before we even unpack anything, I'm going to tell you what you guys can expect, right? If you see the PowerPoint presentation and the slides being different, I'm like going all, because I'm doing so many different presentations, I'm like playing around with slides and everything. But I know my team will not be as happy with this because it doesn't have the Wealthy Money logo, but I kind of loved this little theme as well. But anyway, so we'll start looking at the introduction. I'm going to look at who the Fixer Money archetype is, the core wounds of the fixer, how these core wounds show up in money behaviors, and why healing is essential for the fixer, the path to sovereignty, and who is the sovereign one, the golden archetype of the fixer, of the shadow archetype, which is the fixer archetype, right? And sovereign money behaviors, the journey from fixer to sovereign, and tools to support the transformation, and what you guys can do if you suspect you're the fixer. So the first thing that I want to start off by saying, right, is the fixer archetype isn't an archetype that, like most people get confused between the sweet one and the fixer. There are very few fixer archetypes in our population in general in this world, right? Fixer archetypes are born into a family to move a family forward. From one class system to the next class system. When we're talking about class mobility with the fixer, we're not talking about moving from lower class to middle class. The fixer usually can take a family in one generation from a lower class all the way to the upper class, right? By the time they leave generational wealth. So as a result, fixers are more like our captains of industry. They really like everything for them. You almost swear that everything boils down to money with them, right? It can be very, very challenging working with them, doing business with them, especially if you're family. They hold very high standards. They were parentified, just like the sweet one, at a very young age. But unlike the sweet one, the easiest way to know if you're a fixer is to say, well, do people in the family like to be around me, right? If you are the glue in the family and people come to tell you they have business in the family and ask for your help and support and they don't avoid you, you're probably not a fixer. You're a sweet one, right? Most people hear the sweet one archetype and hear the fixer archetype, and they assume that they are a fixer archetype. Fixers very rarely go broke, right? If a fixer is broke, they have made the decision to be broke for what they have done the calculations and the math and said, I am willing to go broke at this time because it helps me achieve X goal, right? I remember this from observing my mother. In my teens, when my mom lost her job and she stopped working and everything, she had her reasons for not wanting to take on a job, for being willing to sacrifice in that time period, not get a job, be broke, etc. And as soon as she reached her goal, apparently her goal was to make sure that she's a full-time mom to my sister and I, right? Because we just was so challenging. And so for her, it was like she had her goal, like her kids are going to get into varsity. And as soon as they get into varsity, she's going to go back and get herself financially organized. And she did exactly that, right? So fixers are very much focused. Fixers are not just broke because most of us are broke because life and circumstances and we're powerless and all of those things, right? Fixers make the decision and they go, I will be out of a job, even if it's challenging for the next 5 years. And even if I don't have money, this is my other goal. And this goal ties into my money goal in this way and in this other way, right? Whereas most of us, when we're going through life is just lifing for us, you know? And you're like, how do I get this money, my savings, my investments? And often when a fixer has reached that one goal, you will see that they've reached the goal because they will then move and start having another goal and start building wealth. And they don't last long without having like some kind of money coming in. So even if they're going through a dry spell, at some point, a fixer is going to have a plan executed and get back on track. It's not always the same for all the other archetypes. Also, fixers are able to have a lot of energy because they are born into a family to move a family forward financially. They have a lot of energy to be able to carry people. Do they like it? Do they agree with it? Of course not, right? But where a sweet one would crumble under the responsibility of having to look after everyone else, fixers don't do that. Fixers can build siblings homes. They can go build their mom a home. They build themselves a home. They build their husbands a home. They build their wives a home. You know, fixers are just engineered that way. And when they're done with that, you won't see them complaining and saying, oh, I don't have a home, right? I haven't looked after myself. I don't have anything. I'm still in debt. I'm crumbling under this. That's not how it is for them. And a lot of that is because of their ancestral role within the family. So it causes a lot of friction though, because of that and the amount of energy and focus that you need to move. If you're thinking about just how hard it is for some of us to just self-govern ourselves and manage ourselves, right? A fixer is often governing and moving an entire group of people, sometimes entire extended families. They are siblings, kids, everybody in one particular direction. So they require a tremendous amount of energy to be able to keep going, right? So they have a lot of energy, but they also have a huge amount of capacity for, and because of that, they have to have, it takes a lot of like also almost kind of like galvanizing people, right? And almost sometimes the way that they do what they do is they kind of go roughshod over people. And if you've ever dealt with a fixer, those of us that have dealt with fixers, we know what that feels like, you know? By the time you're done with them, you're just like, I want nothing to do with you. You know, even if they have helped you move forward financially, the way they do it can be so traumatic. As a result, the fixer often feels deeply unappreciated. They feel deeply misunderstood. They feel like they've done so much for people and people have not appreciated them, haven't shown them any kind of love. Because unlike the sweet one, at least the sweet one will get invited to family gatherings. People will visit the sweet one. The sweet one will still be treated with a lot of love after a few decades, right? But if people have been dealing with fixers for a while, for a few decades, then you know what that can feel like. And fixers then can feel very hurt and alone as well, right? But fixers often remain very, very loyal to a family, right? They will remain extremely loyal to their family of origin until their family does something so unforgivable that they move away from the family and they never ever talk to the family, right? Or they just move away from the family and just don't deal with them in the same way. So you never, and the other thing is it's dangerous if a fixer also has a secondary destroyer archetype, because what they've been fixing and building, they will go ahead and destroy in anger. So fixers are very, very interesting archetypes. And definitely, I will keep saying this, the archetype with the most energy and the one archetype that has the greatest ability to build generational wealth, more than any of the other archetypes, right? It's a very, very powerful archetype. So in page 165, I say the fixer, together with the eternal child, is most likely to stay at home in adulthood, but each has different reasons for doing so. The role of the fixer is to move the family forward financially and materially. In fact, strong fixer archetypes can move an entire family from abject poverty to true wealth or financial freedom in a single generation. Fixers are the most energetically strong in the family. They are the ones who often make the hard decisions and the hard calls. So they know how to make hard decisions. They know how to make hard calls. And sometimes they have to, because the sweet one, although a breadwinner as well, right, and able to help other people, the sweet one, remember, is struggling with one major thing. They want validation. So if the hard calls means that a sweet one will lose validation, they will often not make the hard calls. They will enable a lot of behavior. A fixer doesn't enable behavior. In fact, sometimes they can come across as a destroyer, because they are the ones that will come antagonize everyone with the eternal child, with the runaway, with the destroyer. They will very much bring up the things that they are uncomfortable with and that they feel everybody needs to be taken care of in the family. And because they have such a strong role within the family, one of the things with the fixer is that they have a hard time understanding boundaries. Where the sweet one has a hard time of understanding boundaries for self, right, and setting boundaries for themselves, the fixer has a hard time understanding other people's boundaries. They don't understand why they can't control other people, because they believe that if they are paying the bills, they should be able to dictate to you what happens in your world, right, and in your life. They believe that they should be able to tell you even what career you can do, how you manage your finances. So their understanding of boundaries is really flawed. They just don't understand when it's better to keep quiet, not to say certain things, to respect people's boundaries, and to just let people be sovereign beings, which is why their golden archetype is the sovereign one, because their role in this world is to learn sovereignty from them for themselves as well, because they're deeply enmeshed within their families, right? Because they're so busy controlling people, right? And they can sometimes, in their deepest shadow state, they can use money as a tool to control and just to get their way, right? And it can be very jarring dealing with the fixer, right? So, one of the things that I said here is that the fixer highlights a connection to unresolved wounds that may influence financial behaviors. For me, it's very much around control. And the reason why the fixer often has issues with control and why fixers are parentified, right, is already you're kind of born with this mission. We call it a mission. ancestral purpose, right? Most of us in African culture understand that you're born with certain gifts in a family, and there's certain things that you are born to do within that family, right? But what often happens that actually from a young age is that when a fixer is born into a family where there's chaos and there's no clear leadership, maybe the parents are not taking full leadership of certain things, a fixer will then step in. And so from a very young age, they are parentified, so same as the sweet one, but a fixer will be more dictatorial in how they do things, right? They really take on that role and they start to dictate. So sweet one is all about love, light. How do we glue the family? There's a lot. How do we keep the family unit together? There's a lot of heart with the sweet one. With the fixer, it's about for us to move forward and to do something in this family, we need money. So you need to get your act together. It's not so much about the emotions, the heart of it. It's all about what we need money as a family to do certain things. And I'm going to make sure that as a family, we get our act enough together that we start to generate income and start to build generational wealth, right? So I just shared who the definition of the fixer is. But let's go more in depth on this, because I think it's really important, especially if parents see that they have fixer children. A fixer child, if parents are genuinely not, if the caregivers and the adults in the family are not taking control of certain situations and are allowing things to just keep going under the mat, just like the Destroyer, except unlike where the Destroyer wants to mirror everything back to the family and say, here's what is wrong with everything, right? You need to fix it. A fixer isn't interested in that. They just want to go straight to fix. They don't want to understand what's happening and why this is happening, right? A Destroyer, in a situation where parents are chaotic and they're not taking on their parental role, a Destroyer will step in and force a parent to parent. A fixer will step in and fix the problem by becoming the parent, right? The sweet one will co-parent. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if that makes sense, because this is such an important, it's so important to understand the difference between the sweet one and the fixer, because most people think that they are fixers. Meanwhile, you are a sweet one. And so your wounds are completely different, and how you have to approach your healing will be different because the root cause of your wounds is different, right? So they are definitely overbearing. But again, because fixers hate to be out of control, right? They will literally stay in control financially as well. So this is a good thing and a bad thing, right? Again, because most fixers are here to move us forward financially. When fixers are totally in control and they don't allow themselves to surrender to situations, they can become very rigid and scared in how they deal with their finances and financial situations. So things must happen in just a particular manner at just a particular time, right? And if they don't, then they can face lots and lots of disappointments, and that fear of disappointment can actually get them to shrink. So they'll definitely expand more than the rest of us, but they won't expand as much as they possibly could. Right? And remember, again, fixers don't get into debt willy-nilly. It's not their jam. If a fixer finds themselves in debt, they will often find ways to get themselves out of debt. And if they see, for example, that the eternal child is the problem, the family is the problem as to why they're in debt, make no mistake, there are family meetings being called. They are letting those family members know that, listen, my finances are off track and I'm in debt because of you. A sweet one will keep that in, right? Hold silent resentment, try to figure out, how do we continue this? How do I continue to carry everyone in the family? Oh no, they can't afford it. I can afford it. Maybe I can take on more debt. Fixers don't play that game, right? But for the people that they love, they have no problems also taking on their debt, paying off that debt, making sure that people have a stream of income, even if people are not working. Of course, at some point, it's going to cause drama. And if they are helping you in terms of income and you are dealing with the fixer, then you know you're being controlled. You never, I don't want to say you never, but like as much as possible, try not to find yourself in a position where a fixer is paying all your bills or helping you in every way financially, because they do have this shadow aspect of them of control. And that comes from anytime they are triggered or they find themselves in a trauma state, the way that they deal with trauma and deal with triggers, it's almost very unconscious. They go into control mode, which can be very unsettling for all the other archetypes, right? And if you've dealt with the fixer, then you know it's like, wow. So just have, even if they are able to pay most of the debts in the family, they're able to do most of it, they doing a lot of things within the family, just having your own monies for the events when they do get triggered and have their moments of control for a few weeks or a few months. You don't have to deal with that. Very, very important when it comes to fixers, I promise you. Right? So the core wound of the fixer is because they were parentified at such a young age. Fixers struggle to have fun or pleasure. They have a hard time with just childhood, right? Like it's almost like a stunted childhood experience. Because if you talk to most fixers, right, you will hear similar stories with most fixers from a very, very young age. They'll tell you things like, I started selling sweets at school or started like an entrepreneurial business when I was in primary school, and I would use that money to help my mother or borrow the adults in my life money. Like I was speaking to one woman who's a fixer archetype 2 weeks ago at a corporate event. At the age of 16, at the age of 14, sorry, her dad was a mechanic. At the age of 14, she had saved enough and made enough money to buy a car for her parents. By the time she was her first or second year in university, she had saved enough money to buy a house for her parents. Had never owned their own home, right? Especially not in the suburbs. But she managed to do that. Even though her dad was a mechanic, he couldn't afford to do that. She went at like the age of like 9 or 10 and started opening up a bank account and used that money, and then started like doing little chores and borrowing money to adults. And she was able to save enough that by 14, she was buying a car. As you can see, that mindset completely different to the rest of us, right? Most of us at that age were trying to be children, we're struggling with teen drama, we're struggling with childhood stuff. We are just not there. We're not thinking, how can I save for a car? How can I save for a house? But most fixers will have these stories. They'll be like, oh, I finished, I graduated university, I got my first job, I bought my parents a house and a car, and then within 3 years, I bought myself something else, right? That is how fixers operate. So in that, and you can imagine that those are grown-up things, right? This is not stuff that kids are doing. This is not like children stuff. So their childhood is, I would say that they didn't have a normal childhood. They are very much adults at a very, very young age. They're not trying to please the adults. They're not trying to rebel. They just see that, wait, at home, we don't have a car. At home, we don't have a house. And then they just work towards it. They're like, this is a problem. I can find the solution, and I am going to be part of that solution, and I'm going to fix it, right? So fixers they're very focused. And because of that, their inner child is a bit traumatized, because they've almost had to, like, I don't know how to put it. It's almost like you've had to control your inner child as well. So they're not just controlling us and other members of the family. They also have intense control of themselves, which is that they like have controlled their inner child as well, that you will not dare come to this party and mess us up with like 10-year-old or 14-year-old drama. Like we are here and we're going to do work at an adult level, you know? So their inner child is definitely wounded. And one of the things that they have to learn to allow themselves to do is have fun and have pleasure. And part of that comes out. And so they can also resent family members. So if you've dealt with a fixer, you've probably seen this. When you're having fun with money, fixers lose their minds. They don't know how to deal, you know, which is why the eternal child is one of the fixer's biggest triggers as well. Same as the destroyer's trigger, but the biggest trigger for a destroyer is the sweet one. The biggest trigger for a fixer is the eternal child. And you can guess why, because the eternal child is stuck in childhood and the fixer doesn't have time for childhood stuff. And so they are constantly being reminded when they see the eternal child having fun with money, maybe buying fancy cars when they get a particular salary, buying fancy cars before doing the practical things of buying a house, getting an education, or all those other things. It drives a fixer crazy because they don't know how to have fun with money and they don't know how to have pleasure with money. So they can be very much workaholics because of that. And it also causes a lot of fractures within the family because then they expect everyone in the family to live like that. So everybody must be super serious. Everybody must do as the fixer says, whatever they told. It's all very serious. So they have the capacity when they are the ones fully in control. That's why a family that doesn't have a strong destroyer archetype to match a fixer archetype can be run roughshod by a fixer and can be truly controlled by a fixer, and fixers can suck the joy out of the family. So even though the family is doing well financially and growing financially on the outside, everybody's like, wow, you guys are amazing. This is incredible. It can feel like being in this family is so awful because fixers don't know how to have fun. They don't know how to have pleasure. You spending money on massages can be an issue for a fixer. They can literally go like, how can you spend money on massages when you have X amount in debt, when you don't make a proper salary, when you don't do this? They can suck every bit of joy out of the family, right? Which is where, again, like I said, the destroyer is very important, but the sweet one is also important because the sweet one has a way of working with the fixer archetype to basically soothe them. Fixer archetypes definitely bully the sweet one. There is no doubt. Like I've had many sweet ones tell me since the book was released that they feel like they've been bullied by the fixer archetype, but like they feel like, oh, everything's going so well in the family because the fixer does so much. So they don't, but with the sweet one can bring some of that softness, that gentleness, that emotional soothing to the family. Without a sweet one archetype and just a fixer archetype and a destroyer archetype, the family is in crisis still, right? So I hope that you guys are seeing that every archetype needs the other in these family dynamics. So it's not just about making money, because you can make money as the fixer does and tear the family apart. Or you can make money and support everything and have no boundaries, and eventually everyone sinks like the sweet one. Or you can tell everyone's business and force everyone to look at themselves in the mirror and traumatize everyone just like the destroyer, right? Or you can just choose to run away from everything and have no family at all, right? So these archetypes basically balance each other, and they act as like, I don't know how to put it, but like it's almost like they counterbalance each other, especially when they're operating within the shadows. One can stop the other from being too much. So a destroyer archetype, which also has the second most energy within a family, can counter the controlling nature of the fixer and bring it to the fore and let the fixer know, listen, you're being controlling. Because the sweet one would just be like, oh, yes, that's fine because of the validation factor, right? And because they're all about people pleasing. The runaway would just run away. The eternal child would just be a child, right? So fixes, although great for a family, need to also be checked, right? And the other core wound of the fixer is the fear of abandonment, right? Fixers, I feel like this, when I look at it, I feel like the fear of abandonment of a fixer is coming from something in a past life or it's an ancestral trauma, honestly. Mm, because not all fixers have experienced abandonment, right? But like almost all fixers have experienced, should I say, traditional abandonment within this particular lifetime. Like, as in, parents haven't left, the grown-ups haven't left, right? They're still there. But there is, I stand corrected. Often fixers experience emotional abandonment from caregivers, right? The caregivers are there, but they abandon responsibility and accountability and leave that up to a fixer to take care of, which is why they parentified. So I guess that could be one of the fears of abandonment, but it's also possible that it's a past life fear of abandonment. So what they do instead to check that fear of abandonment and to control it is they control everyone. So instead of dealing with the fear of abandonment, they go into control and they go, I will not be abandoned again. I will keep my family in check. I will use money as a tool to keep the family in check. And this is how we're going to all stay together. So what that does is it gives rise to enmeshment, right? So it changes the family's patterns. It literally leads to another form of trauma within the family, which is enmeshment trauma. So what often happens is that a fixer, again, left unchecked, would control everybody, control everybody's money, control everybody's funds, control everything if they are the core, if they are the main breadwinner and other people are not making any kind of money or making even near that amount of money. And what that does is that everything then revolves around them. They start to control the family dynamics as to how the family operates. And I want you to think of it as almost like they are the center of everything. And then they are like this gravitational force that's pulling everything towards them. And as they're pulling everything towards them, it's just this enmeshment. You almost have no sense of identity outside of the identity that they give you. And they give the family an identity. So that means that the family never gets to evolve and change and grow, right? Again, why it's so important to have a destroyer archetype if you have a strong fixer archetype. But often, in the awesomeness of the way that these things work ancestrally, right? Our ancestors, I guess, would make sure that often in one generation, if there's a very strong fixer archetype that is born, there'll be a very strong destroyer archetype that is born. And that will cause a lot of friction in the family, and it will often look like the destroyer is the problem. But what is happening is that they are counterbalancing that control, right? I hope that makes sense. So if you've seen siblings go head to head and one is a destroyer, one is a fixer, you now understand a bit more about what is happening. Apologies. I also wanted to read from the book. Okay. So I'm actually going to just say a little bit about, I think this is interesting. I'll talk about the fixer as a parent today, right? I never read about the archetypes as parents. So I said, as a parent, the fixer is goal-orientated and oriented and focused on giving their children the very best of everything. They understand the importance of having a solid financial foundation and building generational wealth for everyone in the family and can pass this down on to their children. In the shadow archetype, the fixer can be one of the most domineering and controlling parents, focused on money and overly critical, putting a lot of pressure on their children. So as parents, fixers are the same to their kids as they are to their family members. They have high standards as well, right? Because remember, they tend to identify high standards with the word probability of success, right? So to a fixer, it's like, if I don't set these high standards and I'm not expecting people to live up to them and I'm not the one in control, then things will fall apart. Because, wow, what happens if these people go and they go spend their money on weekend getaways every single month if I'm not the one in control, right? So they're trying to get us all on the same path, right? So one of the first things is how do these wounds show up in money behavior? So the first thing is taking over responsibility for other people unnecessarily, right? So if you know you're a fixer when people are earning money and you are involving yourself in how that money needs to be spent, right? And like you're reminding people, don't forget, I'm the one that paid for your education. Don't forget, you're here because of me. So, and I'm not going to be the one that takes care of you up until old age. I need you to go do A, B, C, D with that money, right? So they insert themselves in every single thing in the family, right? They don't do it so much with friends, right? But with their family, they definitely do it. They concern themselves with people's income, like who's not working, how are they living. It becomes a real problem for them, right? I mean, if you're a destroyer or runaway, you know you can just you listen to people's family discussions, and you're like, oh, that's cool. Like, I'm sure you know what you're doing. You're not going to easily offer to help them, right? A fixer is not offering to help you. They're offering to control and help you get to the next level. They're not like a sweet one where a sweet one will be like, oh, you're not working. Can I give you money? Here's food, and calling you, where are you sleeping tonight? Do you need a place to stay? No. A fixer is like, let's sit down. Let's get you sorted. What do you need in terms of a career? Open up your budget. What is your pay slip? You feeling that, right? And you feel the pressure, right? The other thing is fixers have a hard time spending money on themselves, right? Hard time. It doesn't matter how much money they have in their bank accounts. They often have, like we said, savings, investments, or they're working towards something. They really have a lot of their ducks in a row. But for a fixer to spend money is so challenging. Worse if they have to spend money on themselves or they have to spend money on quote unquote a thing they consider frivolous. Fixers are not about to go traveling for like 3 or 4 months randomly. There has to be a reason why they do that. You know, they want to understand what is in it. They need to be able to justify that financially. So if they do certain things, it has to make financial sense that, oh, if I do this in the next 3 months, I'm going to make X amount, right? They don't mind. Here's the interesting thing about fixers. They don't mind spending money on things like shares, buying property, like investments. If art is an investment, they will spend money on that. So if they have a hobby that is fun, that hobby, make no mistake, is making them money in some way, right? So if they like into art and they art collectors, they're collecting art that is going to appreciate in value, right? So it's a very challenging thing for them to spend on themselves. And we all know, I haven't talked a lot about this in these master classes, but a huge part of our growth and expansion also relies on our pleasure set point, right? And our ability to hold more at a pleasure level. But it's also our ability to spend money on ourselves just for self-care and well-being. So this is kind of a conundrum because fixers want what's best for their family and they will do almost anything for their families, right? Whatever it takes to make sure that the family expands and grows, all of that. So fixers, again, like you can imagine, some fixers are in things that are completely illegal. So yeah, I mean, all these archetypes are, right? Some of them are doing legal things, some of them are doing illegal things, but basically this is to say if a fixer identifies that the only way that I can build generational wealth and help my family get out of this is to do something illegal, a fixer will find a way to justify it and do it, right? And then they'll be like, I'm not just going to do it. I'm going to be the top. I'm going to be the kingpin in this industry because that's who fixers are, period, right? So the problem is if they don't look after themselves, obviously, all the things that they are building generate, all the things that they are busy working on and building can really fall apart because they can leave a vacuum within the family, right? Because now they can get stress related diseases. Now their health and well-being comes under attack, their mental health, all of that then starts to slow them down. So it's really, really important for them to be able to figure out how to start healing their inner child so that they can give themselves permission to have pleasure and give themselves permission to spend themselves so that they can actually keep being there for the very people that they are building generational wealth for. And we live in a society, take a wild guess who is building the society that we live in, right? Who are the captains of industry? Those are mainly fixers, right? So we live in a society that praises us for working nonstop, right? Working without taking a break, like working without having fun, that guilt trips us for not having fun with money. Those are fixers mainly that are teaching that. Even in the personal finance sphere, we then take on all of those we take on the wounds of the fixer and we start feeling guilty for spending money on ourselves. But that's because when the fixer is educating us around money, they are educating often from these wounds, right? The feelings of guilt. So for them, guilt is a feeling you feel when you feel like you're doing something wrong. So when fixers are spending money on themselves, those feelings of guilt come up and they feel like they are doing something wrong for spending money on themselves, right? So really interesting because most people are praised for not spending money on themselves, not having fun with money. But as I've said, it's really, really important to be able to figure out how do you spend money on yourself? How do you take care of yourself, your mental health, and your well-being? Because that's also going to be key for a fixer to be able to start moving into their golden archetype, the sovereign one, so that they build families that even though you're building generational wealth, there's joy within the family. There's fun, there's laughter. Family members want to be together. The runaway isn't triggered to run away always. The sweet one isn't triggered to constantly people please the fixer, right? And the destroyer isn't triggered to feel like they have to go full mode destroyer, right? So very, very important that. And I know that a lot of people talk about self-discipline. I don't want to spend money. Spending money is important, right? And for the fixer, spending money on themselves and having fun with money is super important. And it will actually also help them grow generational wealth even faster. Yeah, and of course, because of all this, they are in everybody's business. They have a hard time having fun with money and spending on themselves. They also have a difficulty letting go of control. Whenever you're dealing with control, especially around money, you're probably dealing with the fixer. Because remember, a sweet one is trying to get you to like them. So if they feel like they won't control you because they want you to love them and like just be their friend. A fixer isn't trying to be a friend. They're trying to galvanize you forward. I mean, they absolutely love their family and friends, and they are absolutely a loyal. Of all the archetypes, fixers are very, very loyal, right? Very, very loyal. That's why they're in your business because they think they are helping. Okay. So, why is healing essential for a fixer? Whew, where do we even start? Especially because most people think, well, why do I have to heal my money trauma? Because I'm already doing well financially. It's not a big deal. Like I've got savings, I've got investments, I'm very savvy with money. Well, most fixers actually feel very alone, right? Because again, people are not trying to be in your space as a fixer. They feel very much unappreciated by the family, so they feel extremely alone. And that loneliness can also eventually isolate them from the family. And given enough time and over time, they can start to detach themselves from the family. So I find that very sad. You're doing so much for your family and you're trying to move them forward financially. And eventually you just feel like nobody appreciates you, you don't care. And then you just do it only for yourself and you're feeling all alone, right? So the family, the role that you were born to, I guess, to fulfill within this family is never quite materialized because you end up just detaching yourself from the family, right? You just show up as and when it's wanted. Fixers are very, very crucial to family dynamics and to building generational wealth. They are financial independence, right? Fixers are here to teach us what financial independence looks like. They're also here to teach us what true sovereignty looks like, right? Most of us, because the fixer's job is to go through understanding how to let go of control, how to stop controlling other people, how to allow others to live their lives, how to trust that love will be given even when you don't have to be the one doing, and fixing everything. Through their journey, we start to learn what love looks like when you are just being and not always doing, right? When they step into the sovereign one and start to give themselves sovereignty as well. Because remember, for them to be this in control, they also have to be controlling and oppressing, in a way, their own inner child and inner teen. They deny themselves the sweet pleasure of life, which is really traumatic because you're here to also experience life, right? You're here to enjoy everything that life has to give. What is the point of having all that money and not being able to enjoy it, right? So that's a huge thing that fixers can teach us. When they start that healing journey, we start to see what that looks like. And fixers often will be the ones that start the philanthropy organizations, right? That will give back to society because they have that capacity, right? So, and when they work together with the destroyer, the renovator can show. Renovators are more likely to also start, which is the golden archetype of the destroyer, right? They are also more likely to start philanthropic organizations, right? Because they also have the ability to generate immense wealth, right? But a fixer, when they move into their sovereign state, is then able to say, I don't need to be the one to fix the problem. I can donate to the people that have the ability to fix their own problems. I don't need to be the one that's in control of this. I can trust that other people have the solutions within themselves. And that's when society starts to move forward, right? So fixers then start to impact not just their families, they start to impact society at large. And that's why I feel like healing for a fixer is essential, not just for their family dynamics, but for us as a human species, right? Same as the destroyer. Once a destroyer steps into the renovator state and they start to get their money right, they then are able to start pouring money into different ways in which we do things, right? They then will fund all the crazy, innovative ideas that none of us have thought of, right? And fixers can also help basically fix what isn't working within our society. So it's also essential for a fixer to heal because, again, enmeshment. It is not healthy for grown-ups within a family to be told by other people how they should make money, by someone else how they should make money, how they should spend their money, right? And what they should, and how, what debts they should be paying. And we are not born in this world to revolve around another human soul, right? So the codependency, once fixers start to heal, they start to heal that codependency, right? It's not, their word is not the final word. And it also helps the family to start evolving. Fresh ideas can come in. Other people's voices can be heard, who can say, this is what I think we need to do as a family. This is how we can grow as a family. Now everybody is contributing, right? And it starts to shift the dynamics within a family. And that level of creativity and all those different voices is how we actually build generational wealth, because now you can be creative, you're thinking out the box, and you can reach your goals faster. But as long as it's the fixer that has the final say, it will always be their vision that leads a family. And what often happens, and I've seen this so often, is when a fixer passes on, the rest of the family falls apart. Why? Because the fixer was operating from the shadow archetype of the fixer archetype, right? And everyone was dependent on the fixer, and the vision and the financial vision of the family was with the fixer. It rested with the fixer. When the fixer passes on, their financial vision passes on with them. Other people within the family don't have sovereignty. They don't know how to run the companies. They don't know how to make financial decisions, because everything was with the fixer. And that's not how you build generational wealth. Generational wealth is about empowering everyone so that when one person leaves the family through either marriage or death or whatever, the unit can continue. The family is able to continue growing and expanding because the vision didn't rest with just one person, right? So I think that is the key. That for me, it's why it's so essential for the fixer to heal their story, their money story, and to heal their money trauma, because it really breaks generational trauma when they are able to start stepping into the sovereign one and giving everybody sovereignty. So one of the things I say in page 173 is the biggest block to increasing income for the fixer is the pressure they put on themselves. Due to their vows of loyalty, they may struggle with boundaries and self-care and end up taking on too much, especially in their younger days, which could then delay their growth and the wealth they plan to create for their family. Okay. So how does the fixer start to step into their golden archetype of the sovereign one? Glad you asked. So the first thing is, if you're a fixer, you recognize your patterns, right? You allow, instead of fighting the destroyer and feeling like the destroyer is a pain in your butt, right? Because they're the only one that will really tell you the full truth. You go and you ask them, if you know there's a destroyer in the family, and you say, tell me what you're seeing, right? Ask them to tell you gently, right? And they can help you recognize your patterns, but you can also start to recognize your own patterns. You can either get coaching, you can get therapy. You start to notice when you notice when a runaway is running away from you. Every time you're in family gatherings, the runaway never wants to have a conversation with you. Invite them to have a conversation with you, to say, why are you running away from me? They can help you identify your behaviors, right? And identify your patterns. And you can ask other family members to help you, to show you your patterns, right? One of my favorite things with the fixer, though, is the God wound, right? So I talk about that, healing the God wound. One of the biggest things that a fixer needs to do is heal their God wound, right? Because a fixer is literally has a God wound complex. I mean, they have a God complex. They don't believe in letting go and surrendering and allowing others to be self-governing. So in a way, there are many demigods within their families, right? So they are the divine within their families. And on top of that, they believe that everything begins and ends with them. And unfortunately, that can become a true prophecy if they are the only ones that are carrying the financial vision, right? So this is why they heal the God wound, so that they can learn to recognize the divine in everybody by recognizing the divine within themselves and starting to work with the divine, starting to really create magic, right? But through the divine. So tapping into the powers of the universe, really working with divinity to make things happen out of the blue, right? And that, I mean, the fixer is the one archetype that can make things happen like this. But most times they're using willpower. So now imagine if you start working with the unconscious mind, you start working with your ancestors, you start working with like divine beings, archangels, guardian angels, whichever, right? Interestingly enough, most fixers are on spirituality, they're very lax, right? Very logical, very chilled. So sometimes it's hard to convince them to just go on that path. But once they do, they really start to understand it and they see a lot of shifts. Mm. And it's when they heal their God. Oh my gosh, my iced tea is going on my book, which I need for tomorrow's classes. So when the fixer is able to start working on healing their God wound, oh my gosh, guys, this is where the miracles start to happen, right? I can't tell you how amazing the God wound is, right? The God wound work is, because it really shifts a lot. And in particular for fixers, because now imagine you've got the action taking of the fixer and you're also tapping into your unconscious mind, right? The power of your unconscious mind, and you're tapping into your ancestral wisdom, and you're tapping into all other divine powers, right? And you're working with the divine. Imagine how much you can achieve in a single generation, right? The fixers can achieve so much, right? And of course, healing the inner child. Another reason, when we heal the inner child, we start to allow ourselves to take care of ourselves. We start to heal the abandonment wound, right? So if the fixer starts to heal their abandonment wound, their fear of like not having anyone, they start to figure out how to have pleasure with money, how to just be, right? And guess what? Because you're focused on yourself, you're no longer and having fun and replenishing yourself. Self-care goes up, right? You're more relaxed. And when you're more relaxed, physically, your nervous system has more capacity to hold more. But not only that, your nervous system is more regulated. And a regulated nervous system leads to more creative thoughts, right? And the more creative you are. So as a fixer, you're now tapping into way more business ideas than you've ever tapped into before. And you're able to then take action. You're also not seeking complete control, right? Because you're not feeling scared of being abandoned. So you can actually get help. Not just, and we're not talking about within your family. We're talking about you hiring people that you have faith in, that are better than you, and you release control to them to be able to run your business. And guess what happens? You now have more time to focus on your zone of genius. And as you focus on your zone of genius, you're able to do more financially because you have support, right? So you open yourself up to getting more support and even emotional support from the family, but also support within your business. So one of the hardest things with most fixers is even when they are in leadership positions, when they are operating from the depths of their shadows, they can be micromanagers and can stifle even the best of employees from achieving incredible things within the business, right? Because they try to micromanage and control everything. So when they are in their sovereign, when they step into the sovereign one archetype, everything starts to change. They can trust people and they can just focus on their zone of genius. And whatever they do to make money, they can now make it at a 10x level, which is a wonder to see. I promise you. Right? So who's the sovereign one? Glad you asked again. Let me see. Heading to that. So the sovereign one is, so here's what I say in page 289 of the book is, while the role of the fixer is to help the family move forward and grow financially as a unit, the role of the sovereign one is to show everyone that individual growth should not come at the expense of collective growth, right? and that honoring our individual wants, needs, and desires is also important and can improve how we show up for other family members. So now it's not all about the family, the family, the family. The sovereign one is a leader. They have confidence, clarity, and emotional balance, but they're not demanding that everyone in the family follow their way or the highway, you know? And they are here to show us all the things that I spoke about, right? And guess what? They respect others' financial boundaries. So when family members tell them, my income is none of your business, they don't tell you, the reason why you have this education is because of me. This is what I've done for you. They just go, oh, thank you. They respect boundaries, right? And they start to understand their value outside of doing. They now understand that they are human beings, right? They are in a spirit, they're in a process of being. They are also here to be and to experience. And they start to prioritize their personal needs over just money, right? And work, right? And they can make financial decisions without guilt or fear. So they're able to spend money on themselves. It's no longer so scary to spend money on themselves, right? Which is a big thing for the fixer, right? So how does the sovereign one behave compared to the fixer? I mean, the sovereign one is, the fixer also makes money, right? Has money, is not, if they're in debt, it's because they know why they're in debt. They are leveraging houses to get certain things. They have things in trust. That's a fixer, right? But a sovereign one still is very wealthy, right? They start balancing their personal and family needs, right? So they're willing to make money, but not at the expense of the fun and joy of the family. And they realize that they're building generational wealth for the family. It doesn't make sense to traumatize everyone and tear the family apart for money. So they're making money, but they're not willing to tear the family apart to do so, right? They invest a lot in themselves. They started to understand that they are crucial to this family unit, right? And if they fall sick and they are not around, it doesn't help the family at all. So it's important for them to have fun with money, have pleasure with money, and also for the family to have fun with money, right? And they start modeling money habits, but it's not just modeling money habits. What they do is they want everyone in the family to be a sovereign being. Remember, before in their fixer archetype, when they're in their shadow state, they are all about me, me, me. Everything comes to me, like they like this gravitational force. When they're in their sovereign one archetype, the golden archetype, they are teaching the rest of us how we can model some of these behaviors. They are now making sure that like family members and other people come into the boardroom, right? So if you're married to a fixer and at first it was all about them, they need to be the one that achieves this financial goal. It's all about them. They now pull you into the meetings. They go with you. Here's how the financial documents are going. Here, they're introducing you to all the people on their team so that should anything happen, they know that there's someone who will take over. So they start grooming many people within the family to model certain money habits, and so that they can continue their legacy and they can continue building generational wealth for future generations. It stopped being about them and it stopped being about control, right? They understand that everyone has their own gift and everyone is sovereign. So I'm going to read from the book again, right? So I say in page 290, I say, they realize that people are able to make plans for themselves financially, that they're able to figure out the complexities of life on their own, and that if left alone, family members will eventually find their own way. When the sovereign one steps back from the family matters, it gives family members breathing room to embark on their own journeys, find themselves, and understand themselves as individuals, right? So very, very key. They now don't leave the family in danger of regressing because they are gone, right? They now live an empowered family. So even when they go, the family is still intact and financially the family can continue, right? Until another fixer is born, you know, or someone that has a secondary fixer archetype can take over. So that's it for today. I'm going to stop screen sharing. I'll continue the rest of the presentation after I look at the comments. Whew, how are you guys doing? Okay. Okay, that was the 14th, the 14th. Let me come to the 21st. Lucia, you say, I think I signed up for your momentum talk, but I seem to have missed it somehow. The momentum talk is only tomorrow, Lucia. Today was just the media event. There were no people, it was just media, right? So momentum is happening tomorrow. It starts at 10:30 in the morning, and I think it goes on until 3. I'll be on I think between 1 and 3 p.m. I'm not sure. Katlego, you say, is it possible to have more than one archetype? Yep, two archetypes. You have a primary and a secondary archetype. Katlego, you say you feel dragged. Lucia, you say, I'm listening to this and I see myself in both the fixer and the destroyer, and it caused a fight between me and mom. Fixers are not usually the peaceful ones. You guys get away with a lot. Destroyers, we take a lot of flack because we're too busy showing people things. But over time, people start to realize that no, man, fixers are problematic in their own way, right? Katlego, you say, selling at school, struggling with pleasure and having fun. This is so me. Okay, yeah, Linda, it's cool. You said you'll catch the recording and you identify as a fixer. Awesome. Lucia, you say definitely a workaholic, share a lot of attributes with the fixer, but I'm deeply triggered by the sweet one, not the eternal child. I think I'm a destroyer with the controlling nature of a fixer. Yeah, so the other thing is that destroyers can be very controlling, right? Destroyers have the capacity, have the ability to be controlling, and part of that is that has to balance the controlling nature of a fixer, right? So destroyers will be controlling for different reasons to the fixer, right? Where the fixer is wanting control to control the chaos, the destroyer is trying to control to break down whatever they feel needs to be broken down. So yeah, that's one of the big signs also is if you're triggered by the sweet one, you're probably a destroyer because fixers love sweet ones. They get along with sweet ones because sweet ones are very accommodating, right? They're very chilled. They don't respond in the way of the destroyer. They don't respond in the way of the runaway. And you can build with the sweet one. Honestly, a fixer that marries a sweet one, they can build tremendously because, again, a sweet one isn't going to get in their way. They're not going to cause a lot of friction and force them to look at themselves. Destroyer fixer relationships are very intense, very, very intense, but also have such a great capacity to build so much as well, right? Katlego, you say this is so true about the lack of emotional support from the caregivers, and that is where my fear of abandonment stems from. Sending you such deep hugs, Katlego. It's really hard for fixers. Ntombi, you say it would be interesting to explore how these family archetypes play out with chosen family and intimate relationships, friends, lovers. Suspect fixers would be drawn to savior project dynamics in a relationship. No, someone to fix and build. Nope, that's a sweet one. That is a sweet one. No. When you are a project to be built, you have triggered the fixer. You will find a way to build yourself to get out of that dynamic. Fixers don't play that game. What you're looking at is the codependence of a sweet one. Fixers are all about the reason why they want to control you is because they see your potential. They need you to stand on your feet and go get a job. If you have anyone that's dealt with the fixer will tell you, if you are unemployed, a fixer is not coming to save you. They are coming to give you jobs. They are finding jobs for you every morning. I kid you not, right? I've lived with fixers in my life and I've seen this. They are sending you jobs to apply to. They like first thing in the morning, they are asking you, how is that job? How are you getting along with the job? Have you applied for a job? They're not trying to fix you in that way. They're not trying to build you. No. In fact, that's why the eternal child is such a huge trigger for the fixer, because they don't understand that. The sweet one loves codependence. They love you to be able, they love to be able to take care of you, to nurture you, to fix you, to build you. A fixer would never last in a relationship with an eternal child. An eternal child is going to come out very, very traumatized with the fixer. They can be in a relationship with the fixer, but you're going to be traumatized. There's no doubt about that. We're talking like some deep wounds here. And anyone that's dealt with a fixer will know that. They know, they like, no, that's why nobody wants, that's why people, runaways tend to avoid the fixer, right? And then, Tombi, you say, do you have a diagnostic, some reflection questions to identify which archetypes are coming up? In the book has questions. It has everything. Guys, I can't give you everything. These masterclasses are free, but honestly, that's only because they only cover literally 1% of my work. They will never, ever cover all of my work, right? Not even 1%. So here's the book. It's nice and thick. There's no way I'm going to be able to cover how to heal the wounds, all of that. So in the book, the questions are there. Lerato, you say I'm such a fixer. It's good to know yourself, right? No, you say, do sweet ones also have guilt and struggle to spend on themselves? Yes, sweet ones can, no, but often sweet ones' guilt and struggles are coming mostly from the fact that, like, if I'm spending this money and I know that my sister or my brother needs money, then it's going to be a huge guilt for them, right? When they're spending money and they know that other people in the family need it. So sweet ones are more thinking about other people. The fixer is thinking more about future generations and money, just having money, right? So you can have guilt. So all of us feel all these emotions around money, right, guys? We all feel the emotions around money, but it is the root cause of why the difference is why some archetypes feel it more and struggle with it more than all the other archetypes, right? That's really, really important to note, because it's, again, what I've explained before, that we can all go to the doctor for a headache, but if my headache is a stress headache, I won't get the same treatment as someone whose headache is tumor related, right? So we'd have different ways of healing that. So the symptoms are the same, but the root causes are not the same. So as a result, when it comes to healing our money trauma, how we heal our money trauma is not the same, right? So that's why sometimes you see someone doing something, you're like, oh, this will work for me if I budget this way, and it doesn't work for you, right? Or you do exactly what everybody is like. People come online and they say, for personal finance, I did this, and this is what healed me. I did the not good enough wound, etc. If that's not your core wounding, and yet it's showing up with the same symptoms as something else, doing it will help, obviously, because we all have traces of all the same trauma and same wounds, but you may not get the same result as your friend, right? Because we are all different. Our traumas are different. The root causes are different, right? And Lucia, you say, do you speak about how to heal the God wound in your book? I do. I speak about that. But guys, if I'm truly honest, I mean, ask any of my clients, the God wound work, I cover like maybe 10 pages in here. The God wound work in the Money Magic course is about 10, 15 hours worth of work. So 10 pages is never going to be the equivalent of that, right? So I work a lot, like healing the God wound is healing it on the Akashic plane, ancestral plane. It's also healing it at a physical level in the nervous system, releasing our vows to prove the unfairness of God. It's about doing the God wound. What is it? The there's another God wound meditation that I can't even remember. It's called, the God Wound Reloaded, which is about healing the fear of divine punishment and the fact that the divine will punish us, right? Um, and don't be say the fixer perfectionist tendencies. Yeah, of course. Because the fixer is all about like, how do we fix this, right? Like fixers are like thinking more like, if I do like half a job at something, I'm not going to get paid that much, right? Or it won't lead to building generational wealth or income, right? Think of fixers as people that look at the world a lot through finance. They see the world in an economic manner as well, right? Obviously, they want to be loved and supported by their families, no doubt, right? But again, they feel like, let's get this money thing sorted so that we can love and support each other when there's money is not an issue, right? So they do have deep perfectionist tendencies. They put a lot of pressure on themselves. Where the sweet one puts a lot of pressure on themselves to be perfect, to fit in, the fixer is putting a lot of pressure on themselves to be able to achieve a financial goal and to never have to go back to redo that financial goal so that they can move forward, right? I hope that makes sense. So same things, but different issues. So sometimes the perfectionist tendencies of a fixer will be linked to the God wound, whereas the perfectionist tendencies of a sweet one will be linked to the not good enough wound. I hope that makes sense, right? So we're not all perfectionists for the same reasons, and the root causes are not all the same, right? So both, I mean, all these archetypes have to give themselves permission to just take a pause and have grace. Runaways and eternal child archetypes don't really struggle with perfectionism that much. That's just not their jam. They have their other things. Destroyers, not really. If they feel like being a perfectionist is what will help them belong, then they will like work with that. But then the core wounding that they need to heal is their inner child, the fear of abandonment, the fear of losing love, and their sense of belonging, right? It's not necessarily going to be the not good enough meditation is also going to work for the destroyer, but it's different, right? That's the entire thing is about how do I belong? Whereas for a sweet one is how do I get love? How am I validated? How do I not have conflict? And we all know that the destroyers have no problems with conflict, right? So I hope that helps. Does anyone have any more questions? Okay, perfect. I'm going to do the last of the presentation. Okay, so guys, asking about the book. Here we go. Mm, This is the book, What's Your Money Personality? Changing the Way Black Families Manage Their Finances. You can buy the book on Take-A-Lot, on Amazon, at all major bookstores and ebook stores, right? You can buy it internationally as well. So you can buy it if you're in the US, go to Barnes& and Noble, you can get the book. If you're in Canada, you can get it at Indigo Books, at in South Africa, it's at Exclusive Books. It is at Barnes and Noble, sorry. It's at Exclusive Books. It is at Bargain Books. It is at Wordsworth. It's also on Take-A-Lot. And you can also get it on all ebook stores. If you want to support a local bookstore that I think does really, really great work, you can, and they deliver very, very fast, I feel, in comparison to all the other stores. You might want to check out Book Circle Capital. And the link to that is bookcapital.co.za. I do not stock the books. You're not going to be able to get the books from me. I have a publisher, so my books are at various bookstores. So definitely check that out. And if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my gosh, I really want to work with you one-on-one, you can work with me individually. I have one coaching spot left still. Really haven't been talking a lot about this coaching spot outside of the master classes, mainly because I have been doing lots and lots of speaking engagements, and that has taken up a lot of my time, right? But I do have one coaching spot left, and you can learn more about my coaching at this link, but I'm also going to tell you about it, right? So I focus with my coaching a lot on ancestral trauma, on our ancestral money trauma, understanding our root causes of why we behave the way we do, how it is impacting your behavior, and how we can start to heal that, right? We focus on one particular money goal, right? And how do we make this money goal a reality or a business goal? Right? And we work on that for 4 months. And we work on your nervous system response. I love to work a lot on visibility and allowing ourselves to be seen, because all the archetypes, regardless, struggle with giving themselves permission to be seen. The fixer also struggles with allowing their vulnerability to be seen, right? They don't even know how to be vulnerable. So they still have to, most fixers have to learn how to be vulnerable even with themselves by giving their inner child permission to not be oppressed, but to just live and exist. And from that, they can start to heal and allow themselves to be seen, to be supported, and to start growing wealth. Right. So I love working with visibility when it comes to increasing income. Right. So the master classes, the one-on-one coaching is perfect for you if you want to increase income or just build generational wealth in a different manner. And you know that the way that you've been building generational wealth isn't exactly working, and you're feeling very alone and lonely on this journey, right? And you feel like it's always you that has to do everything. You're feeling like you're not getting support from your team if you own a business, or even at work, or you're feeling like you're not getting support from the people in your life, your significant other, your family members, all of that. This is where the coaching really, really helps, especially around healing our vows of invisibility, healing our trauma responses, right? And working with our nervous system responses, right? Transforming just how we make money, and transforming the ways in which we make money, right? So how does it work? How do you work with me, right? I work with people for 4 months, one-on-one coaching, right? And we do 2-hour calls every other week on Zoom, right? So we get on Zoom, we work together. At the end of that, you will get, in between the 2 weeks, you are getting journal prompts and meditations in between coaching calls. So some of these are coming from the Money Magic course. Some of these are specifically designed just for you. I was sharing how last week I recorded an EFT tapping script and video for a client of mine. So she's now currently doing that. She's a one-on-one coaching client. So I do that with you. So you don't have to worry about how am I going to be developing this myself? No. So if it's not in the Money Magic course, it's going to come, I'm going to be developing it. And in fact, a lot of my Money Magic course meditations and journal prompts come from the work that I do with one-on-one clients over time. I start to see how they behave when it comes to money, family dynamics, etc. And then I'll create certain meditations just for Money Magic students, right? This is also how this book came to be. What's Your Money Personality? I share in the book that it came from all my one-on-one coaching clients, like just working with clients and starting to see a pattern over time and understanding them. I also do daily check-ins via WhatsApp on weekdays, right? So every single day, I don't just leave you with the journal prompts and the meditations. I also check in on you on WhatsApp, right? On a daily basis, and we get to talk. So it's like coaching in between those sessions using WhatsApp. So voice notes, I do voice notes with people, but I also do texting on WhatsApp, right? So I'm available during the day on WhatsApp. I answer everything when clients message me during the weekend, and I get back to them on Monday. Right. So what can you expect from the coaching? It's all about aligning your financial goals with your personal values, right? You're integrating your financial strategies with what truly matters to you, right? Your financial goals are being integrated with what matters to you. And you can learn to start, if you're an entrepreneur, you're starting to confidently price your offerings without fear of judgment, and you're learning to confidently ask for the salary that you want without fear of judgment. And you're breaking unhealthy money patterns and building a healthy relationship with money. That is the focus. So we're also changing the way in which, especially for fixers, I love working with fixers because a lot of fixer archetypes have been the ones that have been taking control in their relationships, in their families, all of that. So we're breaking those unhealthy money patterns and allowing others to support you and allowing yourself to let go of control so that other people can step in and start being sovereign and helping you build your financial vision and your financial goal, right? If you're a sweet one, we're breaking the financial patterns of not having financial boundaries and building healthy relationships with other people, but also with money by setting financial boundaries. And of course, it's all about allowing yourself to be visible, allowing people to truly see you, the true you. So you're embracing your brilliance and you're learning to just shine unapologetically. So what is your investment? I charge $10,000 upfront if people want to pay upfront, right? And that is 176,464 Rand upfront if you want to work with me. Otherwise, there is a payment plan, right? There's a monthly payment plan over 4 months. So you pay at the beginning of 4 months, at the beginning of every coaching session, the 2 weeks. For the month, the coaching session for the month. And so you pay $3,000 or 52,939 Rand for 4 months, right? So it's obviously better if you pay full price upfront. You get a discount of $2,000 if you pay everything upfront. You save $2,000, and that is 35,293 Rand, right? So some people just prefer to pay upfront to get that discount because then you're saving money in the process, right? So feel free to connect with me. Let's chat on Facebook, Instagram, email. If this is resonating with you and you want to do coaching with me, just please reply to any of the emails, right? So I'm going to stop the screen sharing. Reply to any of the emails that you've been receiving from me. Tell me that you want one-on-one coaching. I do a discovery call with you. We figure out if we're a good match for each other and if this will work and how I can work with you. And then from there, you sign up and we start working together. That's really it. If you would like to know more about the Money Magic course, also shoot me an email. I do discovery calls regarding the Money Magic course. I will have a conversation with you. We'll figure out how we can work together in the course. You do get 1 month free coaching in the Money Magic course with Numisa, where she works with you around the bank account challenge, and she does womb coaching for a whole month. She also does Zoom calls, and she does WhatsApp throughout that period in the first month. So yeah, that's it, guys, for today. Does anyone have any questions before we close it off? Whew, I'm so glad I managed to do this today. We have just one more masterclass to go. Can you believe it? Some of you guys have shown up consistently for the full 6 weeks up until now. So there's just one more week to go. And I hope that you're getting lots and lots of value. And no one has any questions? I'm going to be closing this off, going to have dinner and sleep because I have an early morning tomorrow. No questions? Okay, fantastic. Thanks, guys. Have a fantastic evening.